Good morning. This video is made as part of an assignment for the FDP program organized by TLC at Ramanujan College. Um, I have been asked to create a video on any topic of my choice, and the topic for this video is the difference between Impressionism and Post-Impressionism. Now, this is a very large topic, and so for practical reasons I'm going to discuss only two artists from the respective movements, but I'm also going to distinguish their respective styles by referring to one aspect, one specific characteristic. So before we begin discussing the paintings that will be considered for this video, we should understand what Impressionism is. Impressionism is um, an art movement that began in Europe in the 19th century, and it was a kind of art movement that allowed for the transitioning of visual arts from realism towards modernism. One of the primary reasons for the emergence of this particular style of painting was the invention of photography. So after the camera was invented, artists realized that the purpose of art should be to more than recreate uh, landscapes and portraits in realistic terms. They thought that there needs to be something that is personal, like an impression um, that that emerges out of the canvas after a painting is conceived and created. This is a huge topic, so what I will talk about is one of the ways in which you could characterize the difference between an impressionist painting and a post-impressionist painting. So the painting that we are looking at right now is the famous French impressionist artist Claude Monet's The Haystacks. Now, what is characteristic about Claude Monet's Haystacks is that you notice that the brushstrokes are quite rough. Now, this particular style was called impasto. Now, this one of the ways in which you could make sense of this particular thing is to understand how the Impressionists worked. So the Impressionists moved away from the studio, they went out into the landscape and painted using direct sunlight as their primary light source, which meant that they did not have control over the lighting of their subject. So, in order to recreate the scene or the impression that they capture, they needed to apply paint on canvas quite rapidly because the sun, as a source of light, could not be controlled or manipulated like how you could manipulate light in a studio, right? And therefore you saw them applying flash. So therefore in you would see that the bright lights, the yellows and the oranges, come in very close conjunction with the blues and reds depicting shadow. So if you go close to an impressionist painting, it would appear as a rugged, ugly um, assemblage of colors, but on the other hand, when you walk away from it and see it from a distance, it looks like a photograph. uh, this is one of the ways in which you could characterize a classic impressionist painting. Post-impressionism came immediately after Impressionism as a movement, as the title suggests. And the painting that we are considering here is The Wheat Fields by one of the greatest of all post-impressionist painting, who's a Dutch painter by the name of Vincent van Gogh. The scene that you're looking at is an afternoon, early morning scene. You can see the green, you can see the yellows of the fields, and you can see the clouds. But you would also notice that there is some characteristic difference between Claude Monet's painting and um, Van Gogh's painting. And one of the ways in which you could identify the difference is that there is a certain flatness to Van Gogh's painting. One of the ways in which this becomes obvious is by looking at the scene of the sky. Look at the sky as it is portrayed in Monet's painting, and look at the sky as it is portrayed in Van Gogh's painting. You'd see that there is a certain turmoil that is depicted in the flow of the clouds as it appears in the sky. This was because, unlike the intention of the Impressionists wanted to depict reality, and yet the philosophical motive behind their process was to suggest that impressions are brief and transitory, and therefore they need to be captured. On the other hand, what you'd see in Van Gogh's style is an element of the psychological. So suddenly you notice that by the end of the 19th century, and as a precedent to 20th century modernism, you have Van Gogh telling us that colors could communicate the psychological state of the artist. Therefore, post Impressionism is the window to help us understand the emergence of modernism. I hope that was useful. Thank you.